Elena, thank you very much for making the time to talk to me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, you're speaking to me from Bucharest.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your career and what you do.
Okay. So I'm a writer and a journalist. I write a lot of stuff. I'm a lot of things. I write poetry and prose, and I write for theater. And or maybe it would be better to say I wrote. I used to write for theater. And in the last year I focused mainly on developing a script, a feature script for a maybe thriller movie.
Right.
And as a journalist, I work for the Radio România Cultural, for the Romanian national culture, national broadcasting. And I host a radio show about movies. It's
Great.
twice a week. Practically, I talk about movies.
Thanks. So, tell me about your experience of the pandemic. When did it start in Romania, and what happened?
The pandemic started in Romania exactly 1 year ago, at the beginning of March, when on 10th, 8th March, and it was kind of shock for a lot of us, for many of us, for almost all of us in Romania, because we all had a lot of projects in progress, and everything stopped in a way, or maybe it is not the right word, because for the beginning maybe it was like a very long break, and the feeling was okay, we have to wait because maybe during the summer we'll be able to reconnect with our usual life, and usual work, and
Yeah.
so on. But in September, after the summer, which was maybe usual summer, we had a holiday. We went to the seaside, and the feeling was okay. Maybe it's not so bad, but in September, this long break, it wasn't anymore a break, and we had to restart with a new life, in a way, with new work conditions, with uh, technology, with kids, with school, with homeworks, everything. Because in March, when everything went in this break, even the schools were stopped. Stopped,
Mm.
and the kids were all around, and I don't know. I think my 9 years old daughter had only 1 hour a week
Right.
with her teacher, but the small one, with her kindergarten, was nothing. Only a lot of messages on my WhatsApp group, with the lady from the kindergarten saying, "Good morning, kids. Today we have to talk about, I don't know, about spring. Let's read together a poetry about spring." I had to read this poetry about spring. I had to make these drawings and to put my daughter in front of the screen and look, this is a movie about spring. Let's watch it together. And it was like a malaxor. It was like something like a snowball, you know.
Yeah.
And concerning my theater work, the beginning of the pandemic, I had no contract available. Anyway, I worked only with 2 or 3 exceptions, only in independent field. So in a way, nothing changed from this point of view. I was very happy because Michel Didim commissioned me a text in autumn 2019, and I sent it just before 2 weeks before the pandemic, and I was yes, because he gave me some money. And this was my last theater work in this field. I don't know. Sincerely, I don't know how and when I will begin again to write for theater.
It's really interesting. I mean, there are 2 separate things. Of course, lots of artists are facing practical problems because they're not being paid now for doing what they do. So they face a very particular kind of challenge. But those who are still able to work, I see a real difference between some who are responding exactly as you say, and some people I speak to are even quite excited about the things that they're discovering. Maybe not knowing quite where they will go or what their lasting value will be, but just the discovery of them is exciting. And others, I think, are, I suppose, being quite defensive. And they're 2 different approaches, really, whether people are leading into the crisis or whether people are trying to protect themselves from it. Do you have that similar range of responses in Romania, I suppose?
Yeah. If I have to talk only about me, I couldn't work, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 months after the pandemic started in Romania. It was very difficult for me to deal with this new situation, meaning staying together in a small flat with kids, with cats, with everything, with our job, because we were in lockdown, we were not able to go to the radio, we had to make our recordings at home, to improvise some radio studio, and it was I used to record in my I don't know how to say it, in my small room where I keep the jars and the marmalade.
In your larder.
Yeah.
In the larder.
And I wasn't able to do anything from an artistic point of view. I wasn't able to read. I wasn't able to watch movies or to watch great shows on the internet. You know, it was supradose in a way of cultural events. Every day it was Ostermeyer at 6 o'clock p.m. Rimini Protocol, a lot of big artists, and it was something I don't want anything of this. I used to watch only stupid movies on the Netflix.
Yeah.
But after 3 or 4 months, I started to work, but in a field I was not familiar with, like writing for movies. But maybe it was better because put it me in a new situation and forced me to think in another way about writing. Um, I forgot
Yeah.
the question. Sorry.
No. The question is fine. I think there was a paradox. No, I mean, let me say, I think the first few months of the lockdown was very different to the winter for everyone, or most people that I've spoken to. And I think actually even in the spring last year, looking at how arts organisations and theatres and concert halls and museums were responding, there was almost a kind of energy that came from the drama of the situation. For a little while, it was like a rush of adrenaline, and you could see people were solving problems, and there was a huge amount to do. And then there was a subsequent to that, there's been this adjustment to the fact that this is much longer and more difficult than everyone thinks. So it's that moment of crisis management which provided its own energy at the beginning. And I saw a lot of people rush to put their work out online, as if their biggest fear was losing connection with their audience. But I think, like you, I mean, I couldn't watch anything that demanded anything of me. I couldn't write anything. I did a lot of writing blogs, but the book that I had started working on, I didn't even think about. I had no headspace to think about that. And if I go back to it, it will be a very different book than the one that I thought it was going to be. So I was wondering, for you, it's interesting what you say about writing for cinema, because of having the freedom of doing something unlike what you were doing before. How do you think that, do you have any idea of how your own ideas, your own writing might change, or how Romanian theatre might change as a result of this? More in terms of the stories that it wants to tell and the way it wants to tell them than anything else.
Okay, for me, I don't know. For the moment, I refuse to put anything in a pandemic context. I refuse to put a mask on my characters and to put them in a pandemic context. Or maybe refuse is not a good word. I can't do this like this. For the only world I can imagine is a normal world with people around me, with meetings, with hugs, with no social distance. But now talking about theater, I think besides the things I've already mentioned, the technology, the new way of thinking about theater. I think the national theaters started to think in projects, to take some work methods from the independent
Right.
scene, independent field, and to work like this. For instance, the National Theatre in Craiova, how commissioned
Yeah.
an actor to make a show, a very personal show about himself and about his family, maybe experimental, if you want, for a national theater, and this is maybe it's not so new, but it's not so usual for a national theater to work like this, to pay the entire process.
Yeah.
In the National Theatre, we were used to work more with classical texts, to have a stage director paid more than anyone else, a pyramidal hierarchy, if you want. And this kind of this way of work, it was more typical for the independent field. I wanted to say something else, but I can't. Just a moment, maybe I. Another interesting thing is that some artists tried to reconsider the public. For instance, I read about a show made in Austria exclusively for Twitter.
Exclusively for what?
For Twitter.
Oh, right.
Yes. And the public was putting dialogue and characters and something like this. Also in Romania, one of the first shows made during the pandemic was a show made especially and exclusively on WhatsApp,
Right.
But it wasn't a theater show in a usual meaning. It was something difficult to frame.
Yeah.
But it was very in situ, if you want. It was very connected to the reality. It was about being together beside the distance, beside the closed doors. It was about solitude. It was about even this. How could we make theater in this context? And the public and the actors were in a confusion, if you want. You couldn't say for sure this is an actor, this is an artist, and this is a spectator. And everyone was creating content for this WhatsApp something. I don't know how to call it.
Yeah.
And this is only an example, but I think the artist would be more careful and more concerned about using this kind of technology, this kind of communication in the future. Maybe after the pandemic will end, And we talk about advantage and disadvantages of using technology, but there is also poverty, and poverty excludes. If we have poverty, we don't have technology. We don't have laptops, phones, iPhones, smartphones. We don't have Zoom.
Absolutely. No, to me, that's obviously one of the disadvantages of the technology. That it, depending on where you are, it excludes between maybe 20 and 40% of the people that you might want to reach.
So you were asking me about the reasons for being optimistic about the future?
Yeah, well, just to ask you how you see the future now, and insofar as as your own work and the theatre scene in Romania? What do you?
I don't know what to say, because we don't know how this year will be till the end. We know that in this very moment we have again a very high um, contamination rate. Even we have also a very high rate of the
Yeah.
vaccine campaign. We don't know for sure if we could in the autumn, during the autumn we could afford offline events and inside indoors
Yeah.
events. So in this moment we have the call, the national call for a cultural project, you know, for the rest of the year, and it's a big confusion. Maybe not so big like it was last year during the same period, but it is. It is. We don't know. Okay, I imagine an event. I have to have a online backup for it. We don't know for sure. For me as a writer for theater, I don't know. Really, I don't know, because nothing showed up till now. In the same time, I feel that our I don't know if this is the right English term, life cost,
Yeah.
the cost of life,
Yeah.
became during this period became very high in a way, and it's like, what the fuck. We have no money, something like this. And I have a lot of collaboration, a lot of projects, but it's like nothing.
Yeah.
But this is for me, you know. But if I have to talk about the entire field, theater field, I think it will be okay. The institutional field, it will be okay. For them it's only a break, I don't know. But the independent artists will have to wait. We have to be patient more months, still more months, unfortunately.